After a quick search online on which are the best pruners, I get Felco, again and again. However, I see no methodology or explanation other than their high price and that it's Swiss made. So, I want to know, are these really the best pruners? Or is it that high price and origin inflating their value and perspective? Now I've purchased all of the most popular bypass pruners, and by the end of this video we'll have a near definitive answer. Are the Swiss really the best, or can the Japanese be as good or better for half the price? The pruners we'll be testing in this video are the Amazon Basics, made in China for $12.56, Gonic Titanium, made in China for $19.95, Okatsune, hopefully I'm saying that right, made in Japan for $24, the Fisker's Heavy Use with the blade forged in Taiwan and the rest made in China for $25, the Corona, made in Mexico with parts from the USA, Mexico, Taiwan, and China for $23.35, the ARS VS8Z, made in Japan for $34, and finally, at nearly twice the price of any of these options, we have the Felco 2, made in Switzerland for $59.88 at its lowest. Now, weighing all of the pruners, the Fiskars and Corona are the heaviest at 329 grams and 341 grams respectively. The lightest of the two are the two Japanese-made pruners, the Okatsanu at 180 grams and the ARS VS8 at 218 grams. Now let's get to testing these, and let's test the blade right out of the box. We'll use this gantry to cut the string with the pruners and measure the required force. Our results from this test will give us a relative sharpness between our pruners. The Amazon Basics blade looks pretty rough with a lot of chips and rolled edges. The Amazon Basics has an average cut of 534 grams. The Gonic has a surprisingly clean edge with little chips. The Gonic has an average sharpness of 214 grams. The Okatsune edge is short and very clean. The Okatsune has an average sharpness of 330 grams. The Fiskars has a thick edge and seems somewhat blunt compared to the others. The Fiskars is unable to cut the wire, just pulls it out of the clip. The Corona looks similar to the Fiskars with a large machined edge. The Corona has an average cut of 530 grams. The ARS edge looks very finely machined. The ARS has an average cut of 343 grams. The Felco 2 edge is clean and similar to the ARS. The Felco has an average cut of 233 grams. The results here are surprising, with the second cheapest option, the Gonic, coming out on top with the sharpest edge. The Felco 2, most expensive, came in second, and the Fiskar's edge is very disappointing, being very blunt and unable to cut the wire. Now, sharpness is a good indicator of the blade, but not the pruners as a whole. The ease of cut comes from the leverage, the length of the handle, the thickness of the blade, and many other factors. So in this next test, we'll see how many grams of force it takes to cut a plastic tube. This tube is a more consistent medium to have comparable results. The Amazon Basics took an average of 10.72 kilograms to cut the tube. The Gonic took an average of 10.56 kilograms to cut the tube. The Okatsune took an average of 6.06 kilograms to cut the tube. The Fiskars struggled the most at 14.68 kilograms to cut the tube. The Corona took 13.14 kilograms to cut the tube. The ARS cut the tube at an impressive 5.7 kilograms of force, and the Felco 2 cut with an average of 9.82 kilograms. The results here are eye-opening. Even though the Gonic took the lead on the sharpness test, the force required is equal to the Amazon Basics, which had the second dullest blade of the pack. The ARS takes the lead with 5.7 kilograms despite placing fourth on the sharpness test. The Okatsune is not far behind with 6.06 kilograms, making the two Japanese pruners not only the lightest, but also the pruners that require the least force to cut. And the very expensive Felco 2 is only slightly sharper than the two cheapest options at 9.82 kilograms. We now know which is the sharpest and which cuts the best, but which will stand the test of time? The pruner's blade durability will depend on many factors, including the anatomy of the blade, the hardness of the steel, and the uses. A blade that's too hard will chip and break instead of yielding, and a blade that's too soft will roll and blunt in no time. Our first test is going to be to test the hardness of the steel. We'll use these Subosan hardness testers. The Amazon Basics is HRC55. The Garnet Titanium is HRC55. The Okatsune is HRC45. The Fisker's Heavy Use is HRC60. The Corona is HRC55. The ARS VS8Z is more than HRC65. The Felco F2 is HRC65. Some interesting things to note is that the ARS hardness exceeded that of our testers, making it the hardest steel of all of our pruners. The Okatsune, on the other hand, is the softest at HRC 45, again making the two Japanese pruners distinct among the pack. This is particularly interesting as the Okatsune and ARS, they're completely opposed on their hardness, one being the softest of the pack and the other the hardest. The Felco 2 is the second hardest steel of the pack. Next, we will attempt to blunt the blade. We have this set up with 2.5 pounds of weight, and we'll pass each pruner through the metal tube 6 times. With that done, we're going to repeat the tube cut test and see the results. Now, a couple of the pruners gained sharpness instead of losing. The Garnet Titanium gained 25% and the Fiskers gained 25%. These are 2 of 3 pruners that had coatings on them, meaning that perhaps the coating from the factory is causing some dullness in these blades until that coating wears away. The results are the Amazon Basic lost 31%, the Garnet gained 25%, the Okatsune gained 6%, the Fiskers gained 15%, the Corona lost 4%, the ARS lost 9%, and the Felco gained 8%. Now these results made us seriously question our methodology. So we flipped the pruners over, we tried to set the tube in different points in the blade, we held the pruners in different ways and angles, and the results we got were consistent. We always got the same results, no matter how we held it or in what way. So again and again with the same results, somehow, likely due to the coating on the pruners, many of these pruners gained sharpness after attempting to wear them down. Next, we're going to take a look at subjective comfort. Now, this is subjective, however, I've rated them myself, my wife, my mother, and my brother. Joining all of the data, on average, the Amazon Basics came in 4th place, the Garnet in 3rd place, the Okatsune in 5th place, the Fiskers in 7th place, the Corona in 6th place, the ARS in 1st place, and the Felco in 2nd place. Making the 2 most expensive options the most comfortable, being the ARS in 1st place and the Felco in 2nd place. The Garnet Titanium, however, is in 3rd place, being the 2nd cheapest option of the bunch. And the Fiskers is the least comfortable. The next thing we're going to be testing is the likelihood of the pruners sticking. Now, oftentimes when cutting fresh branches, they have fibers that can get stuck between the blades, not cutting properly and just getting stuck. Whether or not they get stuck mainly depends on the space between the blade and the bypass side. So we're going to use some feeler gauges to see how much space each of these has between the blade and the bypass side. The Amazon Basics has 0.15 millimeters of space. The Garnet Titanium has less than 0.04 millimeters of space. The Okatsune has 0.8 millimeters of space. The Fisker's Heavy Use has a gaping 0.3 millimeters of space. The Corona has 0.13 millimeters of space. The ARS has less than 0.04 millimeters. And the Felco also has less than 0.04 millimeters. Again, the Fiskers places last on this test. These pruners are likely to bind and get stuck on fresh branches. The Amazon Basics and Corona also have large gaps at 0.15 millimeters and 0.13 millimeters respectively. All other pruners have less than 0.08 millimeters, which is pretty good. Okay, we're at the final result. We've assigned points to every test and tallied up the results. And here they are. The Amazon Basics sat at an average place of 4.5, the Garnet 2.16, the Okatsune 2.83, the Fiskers 5, the Corona 4.33, the ARS 2, and the Felco 1.83. The Felco comes out on top on average throughout these tests. Now, not considering price, the Felco do outperform all of the other pruners. The second most expensive, however, the ARS, at nearly half the price of the Felco, are extremely good as well and are not far behind at a 2. And the most surprising of all of these, the second cheapest option, the Gonic, sitting at 2.16, which is again not far behind the 2 most expensive options. Throughout all of these tests, the Gonic, while seeming cheap, have outperformed many of the other pruners. Both the ARS and Fiskars have been, in my opinion, the very best. However, for the price, the ARS take the ultimate lead, in my opinion. The ARS surpassed the Felco in many areas. I like the lock the most of all the pruners. In this case, you just squeeze the handle and it unlocks, and then you push it up with your thumb to lock it again. Its comfort in the hand is the nicest, and the blade right out of the box is very sharp. It has the hardest blade of all the pruners. It had the best cut, and overall is superior to the Felco in many areas, including price. We've tried our best to represent these pruners as best we can. We're not sponsored by any of these, but there's links down in the description below that do support the channel and help us continue to make this content. So if you're interested in any of these pruners, use the links down below.